I feel like we always say that.
Well, because
Because
otherwise I would have had to cut it.
Just like the last one was a longer one.
Because otherwise I would have had to cut it in the middle when we were in the middle of a point, and I thought we'd wrap up faster, which was my mistake. Because I haven't. What was I? Because this is where I was talking about Silco. I had always said, and you heard me say several times, that he and Jinx together were previously like the thing that made the show for me. And that's still a heavy part of it. But I think through this process, I've realized that I like him perhaps more as a favorite character. And Jinx the reasoning
is a part of his.
Well, he's a part of his arc,
story.
and he's a part of hers. I mean, that was the reason why them together mattered, is because I liked them both individually, and their role in each other's arcs was basically the culmination of each of their the things that I identified with in each of them, I guess, is what you call it. But with this, what fascinated me, he blew up my thing. I needed that.
That's what fascinated you.
Yes, he saw me. Or did he? Yeah, he did. Take a barrel! I knew that was a risk. I thought I could maybe throw it before he shot me with it. So basically, we're going to bring back House again as well, because we already made this comparison, but now I think I have a better description of it. Because essentially, the moral of the story, not that there is really a moral, because it's such a complex and gray story, but if you think about it, who comes the closest to getting what they wanted? It's him, mostly. Like, yeah, he dies, and so he doesn't see it happen, but nonetheless, his goals are the closest to being met by the end of the show.
Yeah, that's true.
So that and
you could argue even on a familial level with.
Well, yeah,
Jinx,
but see, that's why again I'm going to get into that, and that's what's fascinating is he is. Not only does the show acknowledge, hey, this goal isn't so taboo that it needs excommunication. It fully acknowledges the moral gray of it. Like, it doesn't say, yes, Silco was right. He doesn't have a redemption of like, oh, he's actually was right the all along. But it basically takes away the villain card at the end. It's like, yeah, he's done things just like everyone else, but is he really a villain, or was he just pursuing a goal that had its merits, but perhaps also was flawed in some ways, like everyone else?
The only difference is he actually accomplished it.
Well, yeah, or at least came the closest. And that's... So it essentially, I feel like it grants a validity to not only that... Essentially, it grants a validity to that worldview, going, maybe this kind of an individual emphasis, this kind of focus on sort of free society and free people, which is what his whole aim was, that doesn't deserve excommunication. That's not beyond the pale.
Yes,
that can be something that you can want and perhaps attain. And yes, there's going to be consequences. Like, you know, they don't shy away from that. But ultimately, the thing that also I think is fascinating about him is that he basically accepts the consequences.
I was about to say, he takes ownership.
He's like,
of it.
Yeah, these were the consequences of my choices, but because I believe in this, I'm willing to pay them.
Right.
And that's a fascinating degree of give me the thing, give me the thing. I don't want the box. Can I stun him with boxing?
Fascinating degree of, again...
Well, and maturity, that he's like, you know what, yeah, I wanted this, and this is the price, and I'm still... it doesn't change the fact that I want it. Like, he stands by his ideals even when his ideals cost him. And that's a thing not everyone does.
It's called brass.
Well, yes, but that's only one aspect, because that's just his stated sort of goals and his... See, how does that not hurt him when he stands right next to it? I have to throw it at him to make it work? I find that dumb. Give me the thing, give me the thing, give me the thing, give me the thing. Not reload! Picking stuff up is challenging in this. But then beyond that, there's also the emotional component of he's very much a... Well, you could call... He's a bit of... well, I'm going to have to go back again to describe something. There was, in a recent Jordan Peterson lecture that I watched, where he describes the nature of creative people and basically the psychological elements that make people creative as opposed to non-creative people. And it's essentially that they are the kind of people with the right kind of temperament who stand, the way he described it, which I thought was quite, mythologically significant. It's like, these are the people who stand at the edge of what's known, the edge of order, and they court with chaos so as to convert that chaos into order and expand the known. They're essentially, it's a very sort of frontiersy attitude. It's like, we go out into the weeds to hopefully then prepare a path for people who come after us to basically now what was once unknown is now known. And we were the ones that made that possible.
Pushing.
You have to, I think, be able to see him. I think you have to see the thing you're going to throw it at. Because again, it's still going to be thrown in the direction you're looking. So I think if you're looking at the wall you're at, it's not going to go. And so they deal with that kind of the ostracization, and that's why that lecture mattered, because that's what Jordan Peterson's talking about. It's going, there's a reason why creative people generally don't necessarily live hunky-dory, happy lives. Well, because it actually takes quite a toll on you to be that person on that edge.
Well, and they don't live to see often their ideas.
Well, that, but also the fact that basically society will treat you the same way. It's not just that, it's hard to be that person. It's like, no, society doesn't like those people as much as it needs them.
Well, I mean, historically, an axiom across the board. I mean, you look at people like Tesla and Einstein, and even on an artistic level, is it who's Starry Night?
That's not far.
Is that Van Gogh? No, it's not.
I did get him. Yes, it was.
Yeah, so I mean, like, just remarkable truth in that they'd never get to see their appreciation on a society level because no one does at the time. They go, we don't like you, we don't like the fact that you're pushing the envelope.
So that's what I think is a fascinating thing, is you go, it's not just that, like, it's hard to be this kind of person. It's like, no, it's because of society.
Right.
It's like, yes, there are certain psychological tools, like there is a correlation of those people generally being more sensitive to negative emotion. That's the other of the big 5 things that often coexists with the creative instinct. That went too far. And so naturally, it's like, yes, there are, some of it is an actual fact of these people do tend towards mental instability more, but it's also the fact that society generally doesn't like them. So that's where I think the fact that it also, you get that from Silco as well. It's basically, it's like, he's the fringe. And he's sort of acknowledged it because he's going, I believe in what I'm standing for, and if that means being the fringe, I'm okay with it. And he gets a bit of reclamation in the end.
Yes.
And it wasn't some grand, I've been welcomed back into the fold. It's like, no, all it was one person.
Yeah.
It's like, so it's essentially, these ideas, are not beyond the pale, and also you can be the person on the fringe and suffer that because you believe in it. But there's still the chance at communication and connection and familial relation.
With the very important inclusion that you have to take responsibility for your actions.
Exactly.
If you want to be that fringe person, you can't then blame society for putting you on the fringe. You have to say, this is what I signed up for.
Well, and even to go back to Victor again, that's the whole, if you're going to change the world, don't ask permission. It's like he gets it as well, from the opposite side. So anyways, we did it again.
Well,
I knew from the beginning I was a Silco apologist, but now I've actually done my apologetic work.
Going back to Victor, because it just occurred to me.
Now you're a Victor apologist. He doesn't need an apologist, though. That's why. That's why I take the Silco thing seriously, is because he needs the apologist. Everyone likes Victor.
The one time that you see, maybe not the one time, but the one of the most clear times that you see Victor acting in self-interest is in that moment where he's talking. It's a moment
of weakness, essentially.
But look what happens. It's a self-destructive moment. Like, it's like, okay, he ends up, losing.
You're going to want to run quickly. You can't take this many shots. Don't get greedy when you have the chance.
Losing somebody who he cares about because the fact that he ended up being, he
got absorbed. He got too absorbed in his own.
Outside of his own even
that was right
normal,
next to you. He becomes impulsive, and it's a desperation thing. I mean, it's understandable.
But I think that to me is representative of a bit of the hubris concept of how far do you want to go with what humans are capable of
it's a bit of an Icarus thing.
Right. Which, getting into that, by the way, sidebar.
Is it a sidebar or is it another rabbit hole?
Well, it's a rabbit hole, but we're going to go.
Because I was gonna transition to something, so let's see maybe it's the same thing.
It's a brief one. The bottom line is I was recently doing some study on, or I guess
it's a weevil hole.
Review on the Greeks, specifically within their idea of their humanist considerations, And I think one of the things that they really had down was that and I think we've talked about this, is that they had a high understanding or expectation of what humans were capable of, but also had a very sobering or realistic expectation of what they also were capable of, the evils that they were capable of. And to me, I think that balance made Greek humanism very... I don't know how... Not perfect isn't the word I'm looking for. It was
holistic.
Yeah, I mean, it's very well-rounded, very well-considered. Because oftentimes when people talk about humanism, it's fairly...
Dang it! I thought that was on the other side.
It's literally the definition.
Well, it's a little. They take the...
Humans
the great heights without the depths.
Right, exactly. And to me, you can't. It's a little
that
bit like
actually
Silco's,
leads you into the greatest danger.
Leads you right back to Silco's whole principle.
Well, it leads you into being Vi.
Right, but
you don't know your limits.
Because the whole point
is what got everyone killed.
With Silco, you go, okay, I know the heights in which I want to attain, but I also know what that's going to require on a depth level.
Well, exactly.
So back to that. Anyway, you can piggyback off that if you like.
Well, I wanted to get into some of the Big Five stuff because we talked a little bit about it. It was in that lecture because the creativity thing, where he talks about basically he basically broke it down into the Big Five thing, and then because I've already been in this introspective mood, I was like, I really should take that test because he actually has on his website a version of it that you can. It's very cheap. It's only like $10 to take, which is rare for those kinds of tests. And I was like, I should take it. I never have. But then it made me think, I'm like, I already think I have a guess just based on his lectures and descriptions of them. And it made me curious. I was like, it would be interesting for us to perhaps take the attempt at guessing and then perhaps taking and seeing if we are right. Showing us perhaps how well. See, here's the problem: is you're being greedy.
Yes, I am.
You took you had several good hits and then you kept on going.
I'm trying.
You're not going to kill him in one go. Impossible.
I need to know how many licks it takes to get to a center.
Yeah, but it's not more than a single bout will give you. I'm not going to comment. I know you want me to comment on that, and I'm especially going to not. So I don't know. Now, so the question is, how familiar are you with the Big Five thing? Have you ever watched his description of them?
I have, but it's been a minute, so refresh me.
Okay. Well, so the 5 categories, which he argues, and I can start to see it now that I understand it a little bit, that he basically argues every personality test boils down to these 5.
Right.
And you can absolutely see it in things like the Enneagram, where I'm like, oh, it's just because if you're this number, that means you're high in these things.
Right.
And if you're the Myers-Briggs, it's like you're these because you're high in these. It's fascinating, so I think I can see why he says that.
Now, would you say...
I thought I could get away, and he blew up the
barrel.
Jordan
Peterson's perspective on it is almost that any other test is...
That has worked.
...is redundant, certainly, within...
Well, I think some of them may be testing for different things, but he would then argue that the things they're testing for could be boiled down as well.
Well, and they're extrapolations of the same thing. So what I'm saying is, do you hold to that opinion?
I can see it. I mean, I don't know enough about all the varieties of psychological tests to know, but the ones that I have been interested in...
I suppose I'll say it this way.
I can certainly see how
Have you appreciated it the most of all the tests you
Yes, because to me, I do see that there's nowhere you can go from here. Like I can say, if you're an Enneagram type this, it's because of these Big Five traits that you have. And all people who have that Enneagram trait probably are in similar ranges in these things. Not necessarily the same.
The same, yeah, but...
But like you're going to have a higher than average level of this. Some people might be way high. Some people might be only slightly higher than average. But at least that's my guess. I have never done any clinical studies to the effect. But the 5 categories are openness, conscientiousness, openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, neuroticism, and one more. Openness, extroversion, conscientiousness, neuroticism, and wow, I was thinking about it even earlier today on the car ride. Darn it! Now okay, I can't look it up now.
You failed to crash test here. I'll look it up.
It's Openness, neuroticism, conscientiousness. No, now I'm losing more. Extroversion. And what's the freaking last one? Wow.
You're going to be upset that you forgot.
I am. That's why I'm trying to think of it before you get it to me.
It is... Wow, really? Neuroticism, conscientiousness, agreeableness.
That's the one I'm probably very low
You're
in.
not agreeable.
Well, that's probably true. But we'll get into it. So I am curious. So to break them down, and the one I want to start with, if you will oblige, is one that I feel probably needs the most clarification, and he even agrees this himself. Okay, I wasted a bunch of time fiddling with my ammo. Is that neuroticism? He describes as being sort of unfortunately described much because it certainly sounds like a negative thing. No one would want to be like, oh yeah, I'm neurotic. But what that simply means is that is sensitivity to negative emotion, is the way he describes it. Oh, I don't need this! Pick this thing up and throw it at him! That was stupid. So, I start there, because I would say, and the reason I want to qualify it is because I think we're probably both higher in it than you'd like to think.
Oh, no.
Because it doesn't sound positive, but it's defensible. It's not like, you're just neurotic.
Well... It's defensible, but I will say this: it was a different test than Myers-Briggs or any of like the standardized like ones. It was one when I actually went to counseling at one moment, and I took it, and this is when to me, the only reason that I began to take this on a self-awareness level was because it was on the extreme, opposite of one end.
Well, see, as long as you know
But I tested into neuroticism at a 99th percentile. It was absurd. Like the guy that
was it actually this big 5 neuroticism,
no, it wasn't.
or was it? But it wasn't called neuroticism.
Yeah, it was called neuroticism. But I'm telling you, the guy looked at me and said, "But because I also tested really high in self-discipline." He goes, "The bottom line is, I have no idea how you're standing." He's like, because
there you go. Because
he said most people that are highly neurotic are also very undisciplined. He said, or you're self-disciplined.
Well, because I think actually you're probably higher in conscientiousness even than me, but we'll get into that. Because neuroticism, here's what's interesting, as I was thinking about this, it breaks down, he describes into 2 components, which is sensitivity to negative emotion basically means the 2 biggest negative emotions, it's either anxiety or depression. Hence why those 2 are actual mental disorders.
Right.
And
again, on an extreme level.
Yes. And I am not a person who reacts negatively to stress usually. I mean, obviously no one reacts well to stress, but I mean, I don't think I have much of the anxious side, but I think I'm probably more on the sensitivity. I mean, this is another statement that might require a qualification, but I would openly describe myself as more of a sort of somber person. And that's not meant to be negative. It's not an Eeyore type thing. It's just because somber isn't actually inherently negative. You're getting great, eh?
I want to know.
Because I can assure you it's more than one shot will give you. This is a boss.
Here's what we need to do.
It takes several attempts.
We need to buy multiple...
We can't buy. We don't have stuff to buy where this is the fight that we can't escape. It's not like we can go to the store.
Can you... Well,
we could try foraging around, but I tried foraging around and I couldn't find stuff last time.
Well, can you actually like literally go all the way outside the doors?
I don't know if you can go all the way outside of the complex, and even if we can, I'm not doing that. We're not that hopeless.
We kind of are.
No, it took us, I think, 4 episodes to get that one Joker fight, so we're not up to that yet, although we will be after this.
Sorry, go ahead.
So that's, yeah, because technically somber simply means, like, more of the serious, so it's not in the literal sort of morose, which is another word I've often heard.
Yeah.
Which I don't think quite applies. So it's like, I will openly admit that, and I don't exactly think it's a problem, because it's not a problem for me, I guess.
Right.
Would be the way of putting it. Oh, dang it, I was too close with the explosive barrel. I wanted to shove it up his jacksie. Whereas you might tend more towards the anxious side.
I think...
Maybe.
I think where my... So part of it
I had no clue about that. Because I was going to be like, could you guess a percentile? And I would have been like, maybe higher than average, but I wouldn't have gone there.
For me?
No.
You mean...
I don't know if that's the same, if that neuroticism
I don't know if
is
it's the same metric, but all I know is
I'd be surprised if there's different words, different meanings for the same word, though.
Anxiety and depression are both natural occurrences in given stages
Yes.
of your life.
And that's all that it means.
Like,
That's why it's sensitivity to negative emotion, meaning
Right.
a smaller stimulus will produce a larger reaction
Right.
than with someone who's lower in the sensitivity.
And
it's not you're high in negative emotion.
And
you're
what
high
I
in
would
sensitivity
argue
to
is
negative
you're
emotion.
probably correct in saying that it was the anxiety side that made me neurotic. However, I would love to take the test again, that same test now, because my suspicion would be that I would probably be significantly less. Like I'm talking at least 40%
Well,
less.
but I think the fact that he even acknowledged the self-discipline thing is, I think the tests often test for, because again, it's also a matter of reaction, not
Sure.
a matter of will. Because you could also say it's like you could test as a sociopath and still be living a functional life, because it's like
Certainly.
that's a matter of your choices.
I'm just
you don't
saying-
have to act on your immediate impulse.
Yeah, but it's okay. I didn't mean to do that.
it just
That was
means
a
that
fail.
this is the impulse you have, which means you might have to work harder to control it.
Well, I guess what I'm going to say, this was a complete fail.
Yeah, it was.
What I'm gonna
well, are
say,
you just giving up in the middle?
basically.
There you go.
What I'm going to suggest is I went beyond just, if I can say it this way, one of the people I was talking
say it
to
however you
regarding language was that a lot of people, when they try to say, well, I'm going to stop cursing, do what they call beefing up a filter, where it's like, well, I'll just not say curse words around this particular
'cause
context or whatever else.
You have.
Whereas you're
But
actually...
can you ever actually root out that
Yes,
impulse?
you can. The idea
How,
is that
though?
you undo because you're actually replacing.
Well, but see that you could argue that's just a high filter. That's just an extra filter that is extra deep.
Well, what I'm going to suggest is when I started doing some introspection regarding neuroticism, I went beyond just saying, well, I just can't be neurotic, and I'm going to self-discipline myself not to be, because that would have just made me more
you
neurotic.
you have to channel it.
You have to actually undo the stress, which means what I had to do was literally retrain my brain. In times of high stress, I would go, not my problem. This does not have to be solved right now by me.
Dang it!
Or it
I
doesn't.
missed.
It was like the three things I would ask myself is, does this need to be solved? Does this need to be solved by me, or does this need to be solved right now? It's like,
Isn't that the platonic question?
yeah, it's a little bit of the how should I speak kind of thing.
Yeah.
And to me, I just go, if I apply that,
But would you still say that you still have to, or would that change the underlying?
I do think
immediate
that it's changed
response?
the immediate response. It really has. And I say that because I don't see myself trying anymore to do it. Initially, it was like,
Yeah.
okay, fake it till you make it. But
Well, yeah.
after a while, I genuinely felt a shift in how I went about it. Now, that may not be everybody's experience, but I know that a lot of, I would say it this way, I think a lot of my neuroticism came from nurture, not from nature. And this is obviously the whole argument you can
yes,
get into.
I mean,
For me, my upbringing...
Peterson actually would go so far as to say that nature plays often more of a role.
Right, that's what I mean.
But even then, that doesn't mean that you can also change your nature through that same process.
Well, but that's my point exactly, is that nurture... The reason I was able to undo it is because it was a nature or a nurture response. It was not a nature response.
I'm saying even if it was a nature response, you can also change that by conscious effort too.
You can, but all I'm saying is, so like, my upbringing very much put in perspective any concern that I ever had was stuffed and essentially was like, nope, there are no concerns, we're not going to deal with it. Well, that made me more neurotic because it's like no one's validating that there are concerns. And so when that happened, in that it trained me at a young age to go, I have to stuff it and not think about it, or I have to, and it made me more anxious. I think as an adult, I've been able to go, I don't need to be concerned about that, because I actually can validate myself, I suppose is the way of saying it, without sounding too trite, I suppose.
Well, no, that's I'm sure psychologically recommendable.
But anyway, neuroticism.
Yeah, so I would still say I think we're both high, perhaps for different reasons, but not majorly. I wouldn't say. I mean, I don't know I couldn't guess a percentile, but it's probably only moderately above average in my case.
Well, I think our responses...
Maybe in the 70s or 60s.
Our responses to the neuroses may be different. So, like, for my response may be...
well, I tend to take
I gotta do something.
No, I actually tend to take perhaps it's a much more stoic sort of Taoist response. It's like, yeah, well, isn't this just feel it? Feel it and it'll go away. It only won't go away if you try not to feel it.
Whereas for me, I go, somebody's got to do something. It's got to be me. So.
Oh goodness, I haven't seen gas.
I think that in itself it's more the response to the neurotic kind of feeling that. But
right, he's on the track
openness.
mode.
What is that? I mean.
So it's fleshed out. It's openness to. I think it's openness to ideas.
Yeah, it's change.
And that's one of the. No, not specifically. It's just openness to ideas or experience. It basically... No, it isn't. Stop it, because that's not true. Don't be bullheaded for no reason. It's... And I would say that's another one where we're probably both high. Don't take that out of context. And I actually would even go so far as to say... I don't know about you. This will be up to your own introspection, but I would have to say that may even be one of the ones I feel would be highest on a test.
For me or for you?
For me. I don't know about
the openness?
Yeah. Because I feel like it's a...
I would say less so for me.
Less...
As far as new ideas?
Well, or openness to ideas or experience, or it's basically like... I admit, I'm totally the kind of person that's like, I'll try anything once, probably. Like, it probably... Like, if I... to me, for it to be...
That sounds like the makings of a really bad... I don't know.
Well, I mean, obviously there's a certain degree of common sense. It's not like, I'll chug gasoline once. Because as a matter of fact, you will chug gasoline only once. But it's like, you know...
You want to be in this film? Whatever.
What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?
At least one time I wanted...
But, so yeah, obviously there's common sense involved, but that's a maxim for a reason, and I think I don't know, that's something that... And it's... Because it's something, even the idea that you pursue things like different ideas, such as why are we both fans of Jordan Peterson? It's like, because we're interested in that discussion. And the introspection that comes with it. Openness also tends towards introspection as well.
Yes, but if I can use Enneagram just as a framework for a second, you are a 5-wing 4.
Which I think is high in openness.
And
Fives are.
Right. And I am a 4-wing 5, which means I still am open, but not nearly to the degree. I tend to have more neuroticism in that I'm aware of emotion. So it's like 4 or 5 versus 5-4. We're basically, we're very similar, but just in different focuses or emphasis, I suppose.
So that's one that I feel like I would be fairly high. And I feel like the reason why are we freaking doing this? It's because we like talking about random crap. That's very much an openness thing. It's like, oh yeah, let's just discuss whatever.
Yeah.
So other than that, agreeableness, you're going to be way higher than me by like a lot.
See, what is agreeableness like? Actual contentment?
No. Agreeableness is pretty much entirely interpersonal. It's like how agreeable are you to other people, and that doesn't mean people pleasery. It can mean that generally people high in agreeableness do tend to be people pleasers, but it's not
probably
required.
Like a 2, yeah.
It's much more. It's basically, it's like, are you good at relating to people? That's one of the more empathetic ones, where it's like, not only how do you react to your own emotions, but how do you respond to the emotions of others?
Resource.
Yeah. I mean, it's very much the empath trait.
Who is it that you always compare me to in Star Trek?
Yeah, Counselor Troy. You'd find it funny if you ever actually watched the show.
I have definitely seen clips of it, and I don't think it's not a
that's
fair comparison.
Yeah. Well, so I would say I'm not as low as I would claim to be.
In what?
In agreeableness,
that's true.
Because here's the thing, I see myself in my mind. I never actually got to House with the other discussion, did I? I said I was going to.
We did.
No, I said I was going to, because basically the point was going to be that House and Silco were the opposite, because essentially House, because of the fact that they flipped his character arc towards the end, effectively that means the moral of the story is you'll never rise above your own foibles. Which is why I reacted so negatively, because it wasn't just like, I don't like this show. It was like, this actually took a message that was going to be good, and basically went, yeah, all of your striving to overcome your personal flaws, that means nothing. You suck. Which is, yeah. And so, but I was going to get into that, is that there is a reason I liked House, is because I would never act the way he does, but there are times when I think the way he does. Where it's just like, I'm sick of your stupidity and you're wasting time.
Well, and it certainly has to be on a what is it called? Spectrum, because I would say
everything's on a spectrum. If you want.
Yes, but I would say my wife is the same way in that she related to House as far as like the perspectives he had, but you probably more so than her have a comfortability, partly because, and I'm just going to say it, I suppose, matter of factly, partly because you're single, and partly because you're a man.
I thought that's the one I thought you were going to say first.
No, those two things are very true, in that you can just kind of go,
it's true that
whatever.
Men do, one of the traits that define women more specifically is often agreeableness.
Right.
So, I mean, that you're not wrong there. But
I would say...
I don't think... Because that's the thing, is like, in my
mind,
mind, I'm like, oh, I relate to House because I sometimes think that way, and it's like, it's that kind of get over yourself already kind of mentality. But
and I also
nonetheless, I do also think I would never actually have the... I don't want to say it's a matter of courage, because it's more of the fact that I
disregard.
I don't think I actually would have the requisite disregard for people's emotions to actually do those things. Because it isn't just like...
you would want to.
Yes, but I never would, and that's not just a matter of like, oh, it's because I'm decent. It's like, no, I would actually find that to be difficult to... Because that would be very much a conflict-seeking attitude towards life. And I'm not a conflict-averse person, but I'm not a conflict-seeking person either.
I think, if I could speculate, I think if you had a traumatic experience in the same manner or a similar manner to House, where it's like, I literally have lost... career and friends and all kinds of stuff, you'd be like, yeah, whatever, screw it.
Well, that's one of the reasons why I suppose I related to Silco as well is because here's the thing: everyone talks about episode 3 is like, oh, that's when Silco becomes more than a villain. It's the whole when he decides to take Powder in, and I'm like, no, he becomes more than a villain in the beginning of episode 3 with the narration of the whole "Have you ever wondered what it's like to drown?" scene, because that's when I went, this guy's not strictly a villain. Yeah. Because you go, I can absolutely see that if you're like in this situation, your brother, friend, someone close to you is literally attempting to kill you. I can see how the question of like have you had enough? It's like, okay, there's no going back from me here. It's like I'm fighting to survive, and you could never overcome that instinct. Right. Of like everything's a fight to survive at this point. Yeah. And so I suppose that's closer because that's. House's thing that happened to him was traumatic, but it wasn't... I don't know that it quite leads to that level of justification of the things he does.
Well, I also think Silco still definitely has that level of consideration for... He doesn't have an utter disregard for people.
No, it's not a disregard for people as much as it is for society as a whole. Which I will fully admit that I sometimes have.
But at the same time, I would say Silco doesn't necessarily fully disregard.
No, yeah, sure. But then that's why the House Silco thing, it's like House had this show of like maybe he could be more than this, but no, he won't because we're just going to make him a jerk the whole time.
Yeah, that was dumb.
Okay, I've done it a couple times. How many more times do I have to get him, man?
Agreeableness.
Darn you. Yeah. So I would say that I'd like to think and say that I'm like, oh, I'd be super low, and I'm probably only slightly lower than, moderately lower than average, I would say.
Well, and I would say...
Whereas I think you're probably much higher than average.
I wouldn't... Yes,
because you're not a people pleaser, but you are a people person. That's very true.
I'm a people person, but I would say if I could put us on the same playing field in that... I didn't have 4 kids and I didn't have a wife and all that kind of stuff. I think a lot of some of your perspectives or choices are right now are because you can get away with it.
Well, that's not about agreeableness, because on the basics of it is it's like you are a more empathic person. You are better at dealing with people and their emotions.
Yeah, maybe
because you understand that because that's literally all that empathy is. It's like it's a recognition of the emotions of others and then altering your sympathy accordingly.
I don't think you don't understand people's emotions. I think you just choose to...
Well, there are times when I think people need to get over their emotions and go, just because you had that reaction doesn't make it valid. Get over yourself.
Exactly.
I don't know. Anyways, I'm just saying I don't think... I could easily be like, oh yeah, I'd be... What? Was that the autosave? Why would there be an autosave? I didn't save manually.
I sure hope not.
Was that just a glitch? I didn't save. I didn't deliberately save. Why on earth would the game save in the middle of an attack?
That would suck.
That would suck hardcore. Well, now I'm paranoid. Yeah, that's all I'm saying is I don't think I'm probably as low as I would have said 4 years ago.
Neuroticism, agreeableness, openness, and
conscientiousness, I feel very middle groundy. Oh, why would it do that? Get away! Get away! Don't try to do this! Run!
Can't. I'm not being
You're
able
crouching!
to run.
That's why, you fool!
Your turn.
You have to... I don't
Apparently
know.
now
well,
we're going to have to deal with that.
My only guess is, like, did they autosave because maybe we're close? Maybe we've done enough damage to get close to hurting him?
I don't know. How much... Was there enough damage?
I mean, I got a couple good rounds of stunning him and then shooting him, but he didn't make it... Like, again, he never made any sign of being hurt. So, but I can't imagine that was the worst possible time they could have chose. They could have at least put it... I don't think there should ever be autosaves in the middle of a boss fight. Because you could never know. Unless you had like this really elaborate code to make sure it never happened in the wrong moment. But, see, it doesn't even give me the chance that time. Why did you get the chance?
I backed up.
I tried. It didn't let me.
Go again. Because that was ridiculous.
Well, okay. This could prove troublesome. Yeah, I don't feel like I feel very average in conscientiousness. I'm not particular.
Conscientiousness is a self-awareness? Or?
No. Conscientious is in, like, dutiful, orderly.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So I don't feel any particular one way or the other. I'm fairly orderly. I like to organize things, but I'm not a neat freak either. I know it breaks down into more complicated things. I'm backing up. Woo! I'm gonna get some painkillers, gonna get high. Give me the painkillers, my pain needs to die. Okay, I think he glitched because I don't think he knows where I am anymore. Well, I'm in a troubled state.
So what's the last one then? So conscientiousness.
Well, you haven't commented on it. What do you think?
Well, I don't know anything about the conscientiousness. I would say I'm not specifically super astute as far.
Well,
as...
here's what I would say is I think you would agree that Dad and I are very similar. The major difference between me and Dad is I think Dad is very high in conscientiousness, and I am not by comparison. It's not to be stereotypical, but it's a little bit of the rabbit syndrome is conscientiousness.
Huh.
So take that as you will.
Yeah, no, I'm not a list maker, I suppose I would say it that way.
Well, is that what you define rabbit as?
Well, certainly a huge part of his character.
Oh, okay.
He'd send him anyway.
I got him, but
shoot his addled skull.
I got 3 good shots, and I think there's only 1 smoke thingy left. Now I almost feel like we should save just to keep up with how well we're possibly going to be doing. Unless that autosave was a total fluke, in which case... And he's like still... Where did that land? That landed in my face. I swallowed it by accident. Darn it. We should have at least saved while not in his clutches. So yeah, I don't know where you think you would be on that.
I would say probably middle ground as well. I don't know that I'm one.
That's the one where I think I deviate from the average the least. I'm probably 50th percentile exactly.
Right.
What was the last one?
I don't know.
Extroversion. Oh, yeah. I'm very low.
And yeah, I would say I'm probably less.
You're less low
than you.
Well, yeah.
However,
now if I had to, again, I said if I had to choose one that was probably, that was probably the highest, it would either be that it's not high, but I would either very low in extroversion or very high in openness. In terms of deviation from the average, those would be the greatest deviation. If I had to say, I would like to say that openness would be the bigger one because not that that's inherently a good thing, but it does correlate highly with like the creative instinct and artistic appreciation on that. So it's like I'd like to think that was it, but if I'm truly honest, I think the biggest one for me is that I'm like I could see myself as being like a sub 10 percentile in the extroversion category. Back! You have it! Back it! No, run!
I'm trying to run.
Well, you're crouching. Stop it! You are! Stop it! You keep doing it!
I'm not trying to. I'm pushing forward.
Well, you keep pushing it too hard then. That's also the button that makes you crouch, so don't push it that hard. He was glitched for several seconds after that, though. I almost... I thought he blew up your cover. I wouldn't be surprised if I took a test and it was like, oh yeah, you're in the 3rd percentile for extroversion or something. Because I have made this as a joke, but you just let that happen. But I've made the joke once that I am to introverts what introverts are to extroverts. Because not all introverts are like me. And I recognize that. Like, I am on the borderline of hermitage.
Well, and I would say...
Because, I could probably guarantee you that I would be the most introverted person in any given room, because people less introverted than me then wouldn't be in the room at all. It's a survivorship bias thing.
I think that while a lot of people would maybe consider me like an omnivert, where it's like you could do either.
That's, I think, because of the agreeableness that people would think that.
But the reality is I actually am probably closer to...
You, I would say, are more of what a true... I didn't get the chance.
Personally, I would say I'm closer to your level of introversion than probably most people would assume.
But I think...
Because
I think most people wouldn't assume you're introverted at all.
Recuperation, yeah, that's what I'm... The recuperation, like for instance...
I feel like you're probably you would be a better example of like what a normal introvert is. And I would say probably I would be an abnormal introvert.
My suspicion would be like a 20th percentile-ish. But for instance, when I'm hanging out at home, like even with people that I go, yeah, these are my family members. Oh, come on, my wife and I, we stay up late, and then she has given me the latitude to be able to say, well, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, but I still need me time, so I'm going to stay up late. Back up. I mean, that's not everybody's story, but it's certainly helpful to me.
What's sad is I have to use this time to get away, but while he's glitched, I could also probably do some damage. But
I've said to her, she said as long as
my wife, and I said to her,
as long as it's life-giving to me, she's like, if you wake up in the morning and you're like have an attitude and you're bitter, then clearly you needed to sleep more than you needed the the private time. But the reality is, if I have a moment to myself, come on. I could get less sleep and feel better about the day the next morning.
Oh, I'm gonna pull something risky. I think I missed because of that. Dang it! That risk didn't pay off. I think I missed both of those. That sucks because if we're close, that might have been the clinch. I believe, as I said, there is only a single fire extinguisher left in this building, and it's on that corner. And he now knows where I am, which means I cannot get out of here. This is sucky. This is a bad idea. It's not going to work. No! That was the last one, I swear! Or is that one on the floor? Okay, he's going to blow it up with that grenade, I swear it. Oh, well, he blew me up too. This is dumb. We're not going to do this. I suppose the other one went over, so we still have about like 18, I think was how far it went over. What time is it? We're fine. Let's just keep going. We'll stop it when we want. Did we move on to the last one? Because genuinely, like, the thought, we've talked about the whole Anton Chekhov, the bet thing.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the solitude wouldn't even factor into it. It would be like, oh, I get to have, you wouldn't have to pay me. It'd be like, oh, you'll provide me all of the diversions I want so long as I stay away from people? That's fine. I don't need the cash.
I'm good with that.
Well, because genuinely, it's like, what the main reason I ever... It seems to switch, like, every other time you get the chance.
I'm sure gonna love that.
Yeah, so it's like, most of the time, the only reason I go out is, like, to get the stuff I need to work on, things. It's like, oh, I go to the store to buy food or to buy... the materials for random hobbies. It's like, if you just provided me those things, I'd be totally cool to just sit at home. So, yeah. That's probably where I would rank. So, and it's kind of interesting. When you get
married and have somebody going out for you, I'm going to have to come into your house and throw your shutters open in order to actually get you out of the house.
Be gentle with me, Watson.
Permission to enter the armory.
Run,
I hate this crowd.
Well,
I miss Green Thumb.
There is no running, by the way. I think you keep trying to press a run. Oh, wait, no, there is a run button. It's the other. It's the other bump from the grenades. I think it's how you run. That's what you need to do, because I think you're pressing that, hoping it'll make you run faster, but it won't.
Where is he?
He's on the other side of the room, but he somehow knows you're over here. So, what he'll probably. Oh, nope, never mind. He's zoning in on you like a Terminator. I hate this fight for so many reasons. As an early game fight, it is unusually hard. And I mean, I know we're playing on the hardest difficulty, but I found it hard even when I first played it. That is in your scrot. Your mechanical, it magnetized. It just went whoop. Yeah, so I feel like this is probably true for most people, but like I stack with openness and extroversion being the two opposites on the furthest diversion or furthest diverted from the average.
I wonder whether there are
neuroticism and agreeableness are similar, where one's at moderately high, the other one's moderately low, and then conscientiousness is dead.
I wonder whether there are certain personality.
There might be
traits
people
that
who are like
more
high in everything.
Polarizing, you know what I mean?
Could you be high in everything? I feel like you might. I feel like that would take more mental energy than the average person has.
To be high in everything?
Like to be super agreeable, but also super neurotic, but also super extroverted. Well, extroverted and agreeable, you could maybe imagine that they'd go together. But like super neurotic, super conscientious, and super... I feel like that you would just be heightened in every sense, and I feel like that would... I don't know that you'd have the mental capacity for that. I feel like there's a give and take. Maybe that's why...
Well, that's why...
That might be why you have... being high in one thing might tend you towards being low in something else.
Well, that's literally when I took that test with the psychologist when I was doing some counseling. Again, that's why he literally looked at me and went, "I don't know how you'd survive." He was just literally like, I don't know. Like, he was very confused. So it is it's unique.
Do you need medicine? Are you okay?
Yeah, it was very much like he was like a little bit like,
well,
"Sir,
take some medicine.
Your wallet and your keys."
Well, so now what we have to do to follow this up is we got to take the test and we'll compare results.
Did you take the test?
No, it's cheap. I should. I just didn't. I don't have the cash at the moment. So I'm gonna see if I can. How long does he? Okay, so that's only as long as I have. But he still doesn't. Okay, now he's ranking. He was still being weird. I need to take my meds. I'm out of ammo for everything else. So I know that there are now two. So those two fire extinguishers, one's on the floor, one's still on the wall. Okay, I want him to turn around like he did last time, except I don't want to miss. Dang it! I think because he saw me that one, I'm not going to get my sniper rifle chance. Whoop, whoop, whoop. Well, unless I did it point blank. Oh, where's that going to go? What in the name? Okay, this might be... Keep walking the other way, dude. Walk that way. Not this way, you... Like, why do I gotta play Ring Around the Rosie with the guy? Good, this is where I want you to be. Go over there. Let me get...
Snipe his cranium.
I want to snipe his nads. Here's the thing. He's got a bunch of grenades on his chest. Surely I could shoot one. And perhaps... That didn't help. Dang it! Dang it! Stupid... No scope! Well, I got him in the chest, but it didn't matter. Because his chest is built of depleted uranium.
Oh, you're sitting on one.
And of course I forgot he could phase through crates. Well, anyways.
Alright.
That didn't take as long as I thought. I thought we wouldn't have the time. Once more. I think our rounds don't last long enough to cover 10 minutes in one. More like 30 times more. But anyways, yeah. Introspective deep dive. There's another thing I was gonna... Is there anything else
on
the introspective deep dive?
Yeah, I was about to say.
I don't know that there was.
We may wanna pull the ship.
I already felt like I talked about the connection, the Star Wars thing.
The rainbow connection.
What? Someday we'll find it.
You jerk.
Yeah, it literally has been an every other time thing. Like,
I'm holding your lapel.
It's just, yeah, whatever. What are you trying to talk? Were you attempting to segue something with the rainbow connection?
No, not at all. was thinking, it's completely off topic that has nothing to do with any sort of deep dive. I have been doing a bit of poking around and research into.
I'm a private eye now.
Into various types of calligraphy. Now that I have a fountain pen, a couple different things, and I was wondering whether you'd done any sort of poking in that regard, and whether you've come across anything that you've particularly found akin or a fancy to.
I could understand having a single, because I do actually have most of my, in fact all of my fountain pens are the more modern ones that have the actual cartridges and whatnot. I do have one fountain pen which is the old type where you can actually change out the nibs. And I mean, like, they're actually thin. Why? You just gave away your cover for not even an advantage. So I could see myself getting one of those super fine, thin calligraphy nibs that allow you to get the really sort of varied stroke widths.
Right.
But as an art, I'm not sure that I would ever get into it. Because I'm like...
The reason I ask is because I came across one. It's a Latin type that is similar to what is it called? Copper slate or copper?
No,
I can't remember what it's called.
I think it's... I don't know.
Anyway, but it's called Spencerian.
It's not copper field, is it?
No. But it's literally called Spencerian. I was like, well...
But this is a computer font? Or
no,
is it
it's a calligraphy type. Apparently it was popularized as in the same era as copper plate. I'm fairly...
I think it's close to something like that, yeah.
Anyway, in the same era as copper plate or whatever it is.
Well, copper plate's not very calligraphy. It's very blocky.
You're thinking of the font. You need, like,
well, of course I am, because I don't...
Well, yes, but I'm saying...
I told you I haven't done any research into this.
I'm saying that within the actual calligraphy field, there's a font there's a type that's dedicated to more like personal letters, and that was what copper plate or whatever it was primarily used for. So I found out Spencerian was the choice of like business letters. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. And it differs in that the strokes are less rounded and more sharp, which I was like, oh, I mean, I suppose that makes sense in that you're trying to make it a little bit more pointed. But I have enjoyed at least putzing around with it. I mean, I'm certainly not good at it by any means at this point.
I don't know that I would ever put in the practice is the other thing. Just because I am an impatient writer. I mean, I have had for pretty much my whole life bad penmanship, and as a kid, it was actually like I actually had to
egregious.
Like, yeah, my teacher basically told my mom, "You're gonna have to practice this with him because I can't grade his stuff." And even now I don't have great writing, just because it's more a matter of like I write fast because I think fast. So it's like I'm writing as I'm thinking, so I'm not going to slow down and go, I want to make sure I get all the forms correct. So as much as I am a fan of the whole concept of the handwritten letter and things, it's like I appreciate that, but I don't, even if I were to go back to that for any other reason, I don't think I would do it I don't believe I would go back to the cursive and all that. I would still just write normally.
To me, it is...
I was standing on it.
It is the literary representation of Tai Chi on page.
Yes, but that takes so slow.
Yes.
You'll never write, like, if you had to write letters like that, I'd never write to anybody.
You have to channel the Zen in it, though, and just be like, I'm writing to write, not to
I'm never writing to write.
Well, but that's
the difference. If I wanted to practice Zen, I'd do something else. Writing is a thing that has a purpose.
Well,
it has an end.
It's a good thing.
If I wanted to do Tai Chi, I'd just do Tai Chi.
It's a good thing you got me the Eastern calligraphy set, then, not you.
Yeah, that's why I bought it. When I saw it at the store, I was like, this is for someone, not me. Not for me too.
I wouldn't take
good for you too. It's not me.
Anyway, I thought that was an intriguing thing.
I mean, I find when I see those videos of people doing it, I'm like, oh wow, doesn't that look cool? And then I'm like, I never would do it.
I think
because the things they're writing are like for the video. It's like, here, watch this 15-second clip of me writing this word. And
well,
like,
I think
that's a real pretty word, but I'll never. When am I going to need to write that word that big and waste that much paper?
I think a lot of people think of the episode in which SpongeBob's writing that paper.
Run, you have the chance.
And when he does the yeah, it's
I could get actually. That's the opposite thing. I could totally get into medieval manuscript writing. Because that actually has... Whoa! Excuse me! What? I don't think we have the rocket launcher for that, but heavens above. We should have probably been more deliberate about searching some of these side rooms, because, like, maybe there's more than... Well, you got the painkillers, we need those. But don't just go taking them randomly. Your health was mostly high. You hadn't been clobbered yet. Walking towards a grenade. Wow.
I wanted to get the painkillers in me so I could take the grenade in full force.
What was I saying? Were you saying something?
I was just talking about, like, the...
Well, because the set that you have, Chinese, or was it? I actually don't know.
Yeah, Chinese calligraphy.
It's like Chinese calligraphy was actually intended to be a form of, like, meditation and things like that. That was one of its stated goals. So that makes more sense, because I'm thinking more of the Western calligraphy, which is just like, look how pretty I can make this word. Right. And I'm like, okay, well, yeah, it's pretty.
I was going to say, the only thing that I'm planning on actually committing to memory when it comes to the calligraphy type is my signature, because to me, I want my signature to actually be something that is worth looking at. My signature
is... The problem I have is, I have a whole bunch of pages of like, oh, this is what I want it to look like, and I can do that. And then, unless it's something like... momentous, where it's like, oh, sign, the lease to your house, I'd be like, okay, I'm going to make sure I'm going to do this slowly because it's a big thing. But like when I'm forced to sign a receipt at a gas station, I'm not going to sit there and go, ooh, let me make sure it's literally just have scribble, okay, that's good. Because the problem is signatures nowadays don't mean nearly what they used to.
That's true.
So it's like, yes, when I sign, if you sign something like a marriage certificate, it's like, okay, yeah, spend the time, make it take, the 30 seconds it takes to really make it look good. I don't have that kind of time most of the day. I don't want my gas at a gas station does not necessitate a big thanks for that. I didn't even realize that was behind me.
You laced your eggs with LSD.
My eggs? Why are my eggs laced? I didn't even realize I have eggs.
From Men Who Stare at Goats.
I never watched that. Did you?
Yes, it's hilarious.
I mean, I saw the Ewan McGregor interview about it on Craig Ferguson, which was quite funny, but I never watched the movie because it seemed quite strange.
Well, it is very strange, but it
has something to do with eggs and LSD.
Well, at the base camp at one point with all of the soldiers, they literally lace the morning breakfast with LSD. So everybody's just tripping out.
And they did this for a reason?
Because...
Or just like...
So there was a...
Stuff it, see what happened.
The Men Who Stare at Goats is
I know what the premise
based
of it is.
on the true unit.
Well, I can sort of see how they'd get there with the PsyOps thing.
Yeah.
But why the breakfast? Why would
because
that... They had to not know that they were being...
Yeah.
I feel like you would know. Wouldn't you?
That's probably true.
Like, unless you just have absolutely no context at all. But even then, like, I have no clue what LSD would feel like, but I would know something was up. Like,
I'm tripping balls.
Like, I wouldn't be able to go, hey, this is LSD, but I'd be like, someone slipped me something. Something's amiss. I need to be sedated. Come on, give me the load. Oh boy. Don't go there. I'm loading a game. That was obvious. The context was present. There was no other interpretation. I need drugs. I have drugs in my butt. We don't have the Typhoon upgrade, because that would be the other thing that would be very helpful in this fight. Okay. How does he just... Now, if he doesn't know where I am, I still would like to get a couple of sniper shots on him, but apparently he knows where I am. Because he's a turd. That bounced off the pillar. I'm just going to have to... Well, evidently it didn't bounce off the pillar. Alright, now we're down to one last go.
Well,
it is very hot. That's my new topic. I actually did watch a video that was fascinating about a guy breaking down why
Thermal
portable
dynamics?
AC... No, it was why portable AC units suck and you should never use them if you don't have to.
Why?
Because essentially he went into the actual... Because the whole channel is, it's like he describes how simple technological things work in ways it's like it's more complex than you think. And he basically goes down to, is like, if you ever could get a window unit in this place, go for the window unit before you go for the portable. Always. Because essentially the problem is the portable units, because they have the hose that leads outside, they have to suck air in to force that air out. It's like they have a pump that circulates in order to evacuate the hot air that they're cycling. But the problem is that means it spends the effort to cool the air, and because the air is going to be coolest right by the machine, it's sucking air in right by the machine to push the hot air out. So the air that you're cooling is getting sucked out of the room to force the hot air out. So that's why... So it's like, in terms of efficiency, they're ludicrously low. Whereas, a window unit, because half of the unit is outside and you don't need that air suction, most of the hot part of the unit is already outside. It doesn't need force. You're not going to leach heat into the room, and it's not going to waste the effort it's spending on... I don't think you need that in this. On pumping out air that it just cooled. And having been in this circumstance where this thing tries its best, I can see how that could work. The problem is I don't think you could do a window unit very easily in this. The problem with the window unit is you have to either cut a hole in something or have a big enough window. And, what are you doing? Why is the dude... Where's the dude?
I'm trying to just...
Do you even know where he is?
No, because I'm actually just taking it in.
Well, so this is just your recon effort? I mean, I'm so astonished that he hasn't shot you yet. Oh, there he is. He didn't know you were there that whole time. You probably could have taken a couple pot shots at him. Well, yeah, pot shots in the sense of being high.
Wow.
Well, is that... You want to end on being high?
You wanna? Well, we've said it a couple times.
What? What have we said a couple times?
We're awfully high in that regard.
Oh, okay. I didn't realize you were tying that back. I think in general we're just high. We're very high.